Hello and welcome back. As always, my name is Laser and today we're talking about Transformers Devastation, the latest release for the Transformer franchise. At the time of recording, you should know that I got about 8 hours played on the PC version, because the game itself is about 5 hours long. Anyway, more on that a bit later.
Transformers Devastation.
Firstly, we're gonna talk about the PC version and how it runs. And I'm happy to say that throughout my entire playthrough of Devastation, I had no problems whatsoever. No glitches, no frame drops, no crashes, nothing at all. And the game runs as smooth as butter. If you take a look at the minimum requirements, you'll see they're not very high. That's because of the art style the developer chose to go for. So let's talk about graphics. The art style in question is a cel-shaded comic book style, for the most part, trying to resemble the 80s cartoons. At least I think it was the 80s. Obviously they're trying everything they can to resemble G1, and for the most part they're doing a wonderful job at it. Not just the way it looks, but also the way it feels, and obviously they got the full cast. This is unbelievable, really. They got the full cast from G1 to voice over every single Autobot and Decepticon, and that is absolutely amazing to me. But getting back on point when it comes to graphics, this is hit or miss for the most part. It's entirely subjective. If you grew up back in the 80s with G1, then you're probably gonna love this specific art style. It also makes it so that the minimum requirements can be quite low, so it's safe to say you're gonna be able to run Devastation even on older hardware. When it comes to me, personally, this is not exactly what I wanted to see from the next Transformers game. I am a G1 fan, don't get me wrong, but I much rather prefer High Moon's approach when it comes strictly to the graphics. If I were to divide the graphics like I usually do between environment graphics and character graphics, then the characters would definitely come out on top. These are made to resemble the 80s cartoon, and for the most part they did a brilliant job. They definitely look cartoony, like back in the 80s. Now Megatron doesn't really transform into a gun like he used to, he transforms into a tank. But I'm gonna let him slide on that one. Points for authenticity when it comes to how the characters look and their animations as well. If it's two things PlatinumGames know, is their combat system and their animations to go along with their combat system. What I loved is the fact that they mimicked even the transformation animations from back in the 80s. That's absolutely awesome from my point of view, and again, points for authenticity. But now we gotta talk at least a little bit about the environment graphics, and I gotta say, these are some pretty piss poor textures. Not only are they bad, but they also reuse the same shitty assets time and again. They're especially guilty of this in the city section. Now it does get a little bit better when you get to the spaceship and when you go to Cybertron, and they pull off a trick or two to save a little bit of face, but overall the environments just look bloody terrible. I am aware it's cel shaded, I am aware it's made to look like an 80s cartoon, but I can't help feeling they could have done a much better job when it comes to the environment graphics. Moving on into gameplay and the combat system. This is a PlatinumGames release, so I expected the combat system to be top notch, and I was not disappointed. For the most part, the melee combat system, as in the spectacle fighter part of it, is copy-pasted from Bayonetta, heavily downgraded and modified to fit the Transformers and their vehicle modes. And just like in Bayonetta, the melee spectacle fighter part of the game is absolutely satisfying. I got no complaints there. Love the combat system in Bayonetta, and I love it here as well. That being said, it does feel a little bit cheap copy-pasting a combat system from one game to the other, even down to the witch time effect. Once you dodge an attack at the appropriate time, time will slow down and you're gonna be able to pummel your enemies. But if it works, I guess it works. Once again, I have no problem with the spectacle fighter part of the game. That is absolutely satisfying, and that is what I recommend you guys do throughout the duration of the game, because there's also a tacked on shooting mode in this game. Thankfully, you don't really have to use it. There's about 4 or 5 must-do shooting sections throughout the game, but for the rest of your playthrough, melee is much more effective and satisfying. There are also a couple of platforming sections which do a good job at breaking up the gameplay. Thankfully, these don't overstay their welcome, because just as the shooting, they are not very satisfying. There are a total of 5 playable characters in Transformers Devastation: Optimus Prime, Bumblebee, Wheeljack, Sideswipe, and you're gonna unlock Grimlock as well, which was a little bit disappointing to me because I wanted to play the Decepticons as well. All of these characters feel different for the most part, but the moveset is shared, so they can only be so different. For example, Bumblebee is the fastest and the most agile out of the bunch, and to be honest, he was actually my favorite. Optimus is a bit more balanced, leaning towards the heavy warrior kind of side of things, so they do pack a different feel and each of them have a different unique ability. For example, my favorite unique ability is the one from Sideswipe, which is a simple yet effective dash. Bumblebee can slide under enemies, which allows you to continue your combo quite nicely, and Optimus Prime kinda just flaunts his big trailer around, hitting everybody in sight. Throughout the duration of your playthrough, you're gonna be able to get all sorts of upgrades, from blasters, to swords, to axes, to two-handed hammers. Yes, there's plenty of upgrades to go around. When it comes to upgrading your moves for the Spectacle Fighter part of things, we only got a total of 8 upgrades, which are gonna be easily acquired since they don't really cost all that much and they are meaningful, so it's worth picking up. There is also a loot system in Transformers Devastation. You're gonna pick up all sorts of loot from defeated enemies or from chests. Now these chests can either be hiding in plain sight or they can be a reward for completing challenges. The harder a chest is to obtain, the better the reward, of course. Anyway, the loot is divided into 2 major categories. You have your weapons, which can either be melee or ranged, and your consumables, your basic mana potion, healing potion, and I'm not gonna take that much damage potion. Unfortunately, the way you use said potions is a little bit anti-gameplay from my point of view. You gotta press select, the game gets paused, you manually scroll down and select the potion you wanna use. It cuts a little bit from the pacing of the game. The final type of upgrade is called tech, and these are passive upgrades, things like extra health, lower cooldown, more damage with axes, etc, etc. You're gonna have to pay a bit of currency, after which you're gonna play a minigame. Depending on how well you do in said minigame, the quality of the chip will either be great or not so great. Each and every single Autobot has slots for these chips. I would like to mention that only Optimus Prime has 3 slots for chips, everybody else has either 2 or 1. Don't worry if you get bad chips because you can always sell them. Now I'm gonna quickly touch on the story. There is nothing special here. It's very straightforward, no plot twist, even the slowest among us can understand something as simple as this. For the most part, I think it's made to mimic the 80s cartoon once again. Extremely straightforward, pretty clear. Megatron tries to do bad stuff, Optimus needs to stop him. If you're gonna play this game, you're not gonna do it for the story. You're gonna do it either for the gameplay or because you're an old school Transformers fan. One of the two. And of course, we couldn't leave out the sound, starting with combat sounds. Everything from blaster fire, rocket fire, or axes clashing on metal is done crisp and clear, and most importantly, it carries weight to it, so no complaints there. The voiceover, oh my god, the voiceover. They got most of the original Transformers cast from back in the 80s, so you cannot ask for more than this. The original Megatron and the original Optimus, of course, being the most important. Unfortunately, they only got 20-30 lines each, but for an old school fan such as myself, this is truly epic. When it comes to the soundtrack itself, it's 80s power metal, baby, 80s power riff, so if you're into that, you're gonna love it, which is once again straight up my alley. So for my own 2 cents, I absolutely love what they did with the sound.
We will find a way to save Cybertron, but I cannot allow you to destroy Earth.
We should have been allies, you know. Imagine what we could have accomplished. But you never had the manifolds to do what needed to be done.
I have the manifolds to stand up for those who cannot stand for themselves. Destruction to keep Cybertron on life support. There must be another way.
Flesh isn't life. Save those gyros and fuel. This is where life comes from.
And so we reached conclusion time, and you probably saw this one coming. I am geeking the freak out over this game. They look like in the old school cartoon, they talk like in the old school cartoon, they even transform like in the old school cartoon. I cannot be more happy as an old school Transformers fan. But they are also asking $40 for a 6-hour-long single player campaign. There is some replay value here. You can go back to already completed levels in the search for a better rating or better loot. The challenges add a little bit as well, yet some of them are not really welcome. Platforming challenges which we already discussed that the platforming is not really all that great. Get from point A to point B in the limited amount of time, collect all these shiny globes. They add a little bit. There is no multiplayer here and the gameplay does tend to get repetitive. So if you're an old school Transformers fan, just like myself, pick this one up. We're the guys that are supposed to buy it, play it and enjoy it. Everybody else, wait for a 75% off. And that's gonna do it for me. I'm gonna thank you guys for watching. Like, favorite, share and subscribe if you enjoyed the content. If you got any feedback for me, please let me know in the comment section down below. I'm off. Bye bye guys. Bye bye.